I would like first to thank Liberation for organizing this discussion about Palestine in this crucial moment. We are talking now about annexation, but as you know, annexation is some result of the core issue in Palestine, which is the occupation. As you know, from 1947, when the decision from United Nations 181 was taken, that one Palestinian state beside Israel has to be established. But unfortunately, Israel then occupied a huge part of this supposed Palestinian state, more than 25, 26% of the territory where Palestinian state had to be established. 1967, Israel occupied the rest of Palestine, and not only. 67, Israel occupied Sinai from Egypt, Golan Heights from Syria, and a part of Lebanon. With some agreement between Egypt and Israel, they withdrew from Sinai, but they are still occupying all Palestine, sieging Gaza, of course, as you know, and West Bank is under occupation, and Golan Heights. Israel, from 1967, started this policy of annexation. First, they announced Jerusalem as a part of Israel, and it will be forever united and capital of Israel. And then they, according to Oslo Agreement, they divided Palestinian territories in West Bank in 3 zones, A, B, and C. C part is around 60% of West Bank, which is under Israeli control, fully Israeli control. Israel, from the first moment, started to build settlements, making the situation every day very difficult for the future Palestinian state. And from Oslo Agreement until now, settlements in West Bank reached around 800,000 people, with a huge number of settlements. And now Israel is planning to annex another part of around 30% of West Bank, mainly Jordan Valley. And when we speak about Jordan Valley, it is very, very important that this will cut Palestine from any contact with any place in the world, because as you know, Israel is surrounding West Bank and Gaza, and the only passage to the world is through Jordan River to Jordan. And if Israel do this and another parts of West Bank, mainly the big settlements near Jerusalem and inside Jerusalem, near Nablus and Hebron, means that there will be only 10% of the territory in West Bank full of settlements and blockades and checkpoints, without continuation between West Bank and Gaza, without continuation between parts of the West Bank itself, between south in Hebron, between the center in Ramallah and north in Nablus. This means that the possibility of establishing a viable Palestinian state will be equal 0. And because of that, this plan must be stopped. The main issue is the occupation. Occupation must be ended. Without ending the occupation and without establishing a Palestinian state within the borders of June 4th, 67, with East Jerusalem as its capital, near Israel, and without solving the issue of refugees according to the UN resolutions, and mainly 194 for the refugees, there will not be any possibility for peace in the Middle East. And when we say that there is no peace in Palestine, means that there is no peace in the Middle East in general, because Palestinian issue is a core issue in the region, and plus other problems in current situation in the Middle East, war in Syria, threatening Lebanon, situation in Iraq and Yemen, and it means that this region will be under a huge threat of general war. And as we can see now with the policy of United States and Israel, there is a real danger of conflict, that because Israel is insisting for some coalition with some Arab countries against Iran, saying that Iran is the main target and the main enemy of all them. Israel and the current government of Israel, which is unfortunately ultra-right, taking the advantage of being Donald Trump as a president in the United States and giving the fully support to this policy, taking the steps from recognizing Jerusalem as capital of Israel, cutting the aid to the PLO, and the Palestinian Authority closing the office of PLO in Washington, cutting the aid to UNRWA, which is UN organization for refugees. This is a very dangerous situation, and this, unfortunately, in Israel, there is no differences between the main continents of the Israeli governments. Even Gantz and Netanyahu and other political figures in Israel, all of them are supporting the so-called deal of century of Trump and annexation. The differences is only tactical differences, saying that it is not time. They have to do it slowly, without noise, without too much. And the security forces in Israel also warning that maybe there will be a big reaction from Palestinians and so and so. The main issue, as we said in the beginning, is the occupation. But as you know, and as you follow through the 70 years of life of Israel, Israel never respected any international law, any human rights. They didn't implement any resolution of United Nations. And because of that, we believe that Israel from itself will not end this occupation. And Palestinian possibility as Palestine is not enough to force Israel to do that. And because of that, we believe that international community, especially countries who can and have influence to press Israel, to force Israel to respect the UN resolutions and the human rights, and to help in finding solution, we can have some hope. But in the current situation with the administration in Washington, with this government in Israel, and with the European Union, unfortunately, all these years is only giving us good words without any practical steps to force Israel to implement and to respect the international law. Because of that, we believe that solidarity from the people, actions from the people in Europe to force their governments to recognize Palestinian state within the borders of June 4th, 67, as it was recognized by United Nations, to stop the occupation, to establish a Palestinian state, to stop settlements, to stop and demolish the wall as the court in Hague decided. Without this, I believe that no solution will be, no peace will be in Palestine and in the region. And because of that, we count on your support. Thank you.